I think mission obviously is very important, but it doesn't need to be conflicted with like cause. I think if you're looking to create a brand, obviously you need to have some form of purpose there. But really the priority in creating a brand, in my opinion, is, number one, you need to have a great product. Number two, you need to be ready to build a community.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Perfectly Mentored. I'm your host, Jason Portnoy. My guest on this episode is Adam Greenberg. He is one of the co-founders of OneBone, a size-inclusive brand for the hard-to-fit man. He's a morning radio show host here in my hometown, Montreal, Virgin Radio, and he used to tour as an MC, TB1, with some amazing acts. And while he was on tour across North America, he had to custom make his own clothing because finding something that looked as good as it fit was very hard to come by. Now, the group of partners at OneBone are attracting tons of people with the solution, fun, friendly, and accessible marketing, and thousands of people who become loyal and passionate ambassadors for the brand. It's an episode if you're an e-commerce brand and you want to learn how to build a brand and you want to learn how to build a community and do things the right way. This is the episode for you. Check it out. Adam, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you, sir. Happy to be here.
Look, for the listeners who don't know you, why don't you give us a little insight into your entrepreneurial journey? And you have a lot to talk about. You lived as if you're like 97 years old, but yeah, but you've actually had a pretty entertaining past. So let's dive in a little bit.
Yeah, I guess where it leads to is, being one of the co-founders of OneBone, what we like to call our first ever big and tall size inclusive brand, and as well a radio host here in Montreal. And that backtracks from being on tour, DJing across North America as, TB1 and Wonderful, a part of a DJ duo. My background is in film, so, many corporate collaborations and working with companies and building out, proper aesthetic and stuff for them, which, eventually it led me to, doing that for OneBone here. And yeah, it's been an exciting journey for sure.
So I got to ask you, why clothing though? It's one of the most competitive spaces. I know. I was there. I hated every moment of it. I truly hated it. So that's why I have so much respect for people who are able to grow it and actually love what they do. But what made you come up with the idea for OneBone?
So it was because I was DJing and I didn't fit into anything when I would go into a mall. I would this is how I would shop. I would feel things on a rack and just feel them and like imagine what it would be like to wear them. And I'm like the size that is just out of a mall, that doesn't fit between, the small to XL or double XL, and double XL in a mall generally doesn't fit, the way you want a double XL to fit. So I actually went to a fabric store, picked out material, and went to a friend's buddy, his mother, and she was a seamstress. And she was custom making my own t-shirts, made to measure t-shirts. And I was wearing that on tour for about 2.5 years until my now partners saw me at an event. We're close family friends. We saw each other at an event and they were like, "You look great. Where did you get your t-shirt?" And I said, "I made it myself." And they have a huge, experience and expertise in fashion. They were like, "Call me tomorrow." And then we hit the ground running with OneBone and realized that it wasn't just a problem that I was solving for myself. It was a problem that many were going through. To be honest, I never really cared to get into it as a business. It was really just a very selfish solution for myself because I couldn't find clothes that fit.
So how long ago was that?
Now we're moving up to like 3.5 years since launch. So it was June 2018, and we were working on OneBone probably for about a year before we launched it.
So walk me through the year one, right? This is where a lot of e-commerce companies trip up. And I'm sure you made a lot of the same mistakes a lot of these e-commerce stores are making right now. talk to me about year one of now. It's not you, right? Now it's not clothing for you, but now you got to create an offer and a product for other people. What was that like? And what were some of the, I mean, if you could go over and have a do-over in those times, what would it be?
Honestly, I don't know if I would do anything over. The hurdles, they're always tough to get over, but a lot of people have way crazier hurdles to get through in life. Our year one, and I'll backtrack to like year one pre One Bone, was really just about identifying like the perfect pattern, the perfect fabric that we wanted to use for the t-shirt to make sure that it really like fit the big man first. That's part of the reason behind One Bone is like, one, we wanted the big man to come first, and then we were size inclusive after that. And what we found was that the things that we were correcting on the t-shirt for the big man also seemed to be an issue for the size medium to XL, let's call it. So year one, pre One Bone, was really just perfecting the body of the t-shirt, figuring out the proper grading between the sizing and the structure, coming up with, the name, the logo, the brand concept behind it. And as well, I think, from my side of things as like, chief marketing officer, really diving into the DMs and doing the market research and already starting to build a community even before there was a brand. I was reaching out to basically anybody who was using the hashtag big and tall, and I was sending them as a DM. And I guess I had a little bit of clout being a radio host in Montreal, so I could reach out to, slightly bigger people, but I mean, in terms of following, but it wasn't really about that. It was micro influencers. It was people with no following at all, but using the hashtag and just asking them, hey, out of curiosity, if there was a t-shirt brand that solved our issues as the big man, would you be interested in something like that? And everybody was on board. So we were already building this bubble of a community and influencers that once we launched day one, we had already sent them some stuff to try out, to create some content, to get some feedback, some social proof. And then June 27th, 2018, we launched. And from there, the challenge is, how do you get your first order? And then how do you turn one order into 5 orders? And then how do you turn 5 orders into 50? And I think that's maybe something that people neglect, or, maybe turns them off in that first month, 6 months to a year. Like, it's not just gonna, turn on the lights and the room is full. That's not how it works. It's really one step at a time, brick by brick, and messaging people, outreach, and just bringing people in organically. And it's slow until that ball starts to roll and it becomes more exponential and the word of mouth is there.
So let's talk about that, because I think that's an excellent point and I totally agree with you. Talk in terms of mindset, right? Now you're a 7-figure brand, but when you started, if you could, like, what mindset mistakes were you making as a startup versus now you have the clarity on, and you're like, man, if I could just like drill this into my head, like starting off, like what would be that shift in your mind?
Again, I think from a branding and marketing perspective, because of my experience with Wonderful and DJing and touring. Look, man, the music industry is just a series of no's. Everybody's going to tell you no until you hit that like one yes, and then you kind of graduate to this next grade. And I think because of the successes and failures I had in that world, that sort of built the mindset to know and understand that like it's going to be a series of no's. And if you're looking at it from a business standpoint, the conversion rate's not going to be there at first, and then it's going to incrementally get better and better. But that was really, the mindset was built before we launched One Bone, at least from a branding and marketing standpoint. And then my partners, fortunately, They had 35 plus years of experience in fashion. So all the hurdles from a year one clothing and trying to figure it out on your own mentality, that was kind of out the window for them as well, because it's not a 3-year-old brand. Essentially, it's a 45 plus year old brand that is just birthed in 3 years from a production standpoint and logistics standpoint, and then from a marketing standpoint, it's like a 15-year-old brand, you know. So I think that, again, the failures and successes that you experience in trying to create a community and build a business out of music and entertaining people and you know, jumping from club to club and crowd to crowd, that's what built the sort of resilience that you need to launch a brand from scratch.
So then how important is it for you to have a mission, for example, like to have a brand story, something that drives you? And I guess, what does One Bone stand for?
I think mission obviously is very important, but it doesn't need to be conflicted with like cause. You know, I think if you're looking to create a brand, obviously you need to have some form of purpose there. But really the priority in creating a brand, in my opinion, is, you know, number one, you need to have a great product. Number two, you need to be ready to build a community. And that's really what it's all about. It's about building a community. And fortunately, that's the most organic thing we could be doing, because as a big man or as a hard to fit man, you want to sort of share the wealth when you find a t-shirt that fits you perfectly, and you see another guy walking down the street that isn't wearing a t-shirt that works so well, and it's like you're empowered. It's like your gift to change that guy's world, you know. Even on our new hang tags, like we put our QR code to offer it out as a business card. So when you get our t-shirts, it's like you have the power to like share that brand physically with either a friend, a family member, or someone in the street. And I mean, what One Bone stands for is really just taking a community of people who had been marginalized in the fashion world, but yet they're the majority. You know, if you look at the average waist size in the States or in North America, it's 40, you know, and by the time you get to 40 in a mall, you're hard pressed to find a 40. You know, now a lot of brands and a lot of companies are starting to make changes, and body positivity movement and just like taking those necessary steps. But that's what we stand for, is like the guy who is the majority but treated like the minority. Let's treat them the way they deserve to be treated.
I mean, so you talked about community, and I totally believe you, and I agree with you that community is super huge. But was that the priority from day one when you guys started off, or was that just a byproduct of you going to the DMs and reaching out, trying to sell and trying to do market research? Or did you do it with the knowledge of community is going to be our number one thing in order to grow this brand? I got to start laying the foundation.
Well, you know, that's the beauty behind having strategic partners, because you know, it's not like I'm in charge of production, and it's not like I'm in charge of logistics, and we all sort of fit into our own world very well. So where the pillar for my partner Matt, for example, is production, and to make sure the quality is absolutely pristine, and if it's not, how do we deal with that, and how do we, you know, pivot and evolve? And then from a logistics and a customer service standpoint, that's my other partner, Sam. And he just makes sure that whole world is completely taken care of, where I can take care of my pillar and my priority, which is community building and making sure that there's, you know, a stream of content, there's a stream of relatability. And again, it's like, it's the most organic thing that we can possibly do, because our brand is for us. Like it was literally custom made for my body before we started One Bone. So being 6'3", 300 pounds plus, you don't fit in unless you see that other guy in the street that kind of looks like you. I have a moment that stands out, being like in a very big crowd in a small place at this place in Montreal, Burgundy Lion. And a buddy of mine now, who I didn't know at all, everyone's tight, everyone's cramped in there, and people are drinking and having a good time. And from across the room, you see another big guy that is 6 foot plus and probably in the neighborhood of that 300-pound club or whatever. And it's just like everyone's super cramped, and it's like, I see you, bro. We've got the same struggles. We're here together. And it's like that sense of community happens kind of whether you like it or not. So again, like that's my priority in this brand. And that's honestly what I was so excited about. And we are so excited about with One Bone, is finding other guys that have had similar issues and relating with them. And it's such a blessing now that we have friends mostly all over North America, but widespread throughout the world, that like, if we go to any city, and we're really excited once the pandemic is done to be sharing that time with people, you've got friends all across the world, and you've got that little connection in the bar through a t-shirt now.
So what tips do you have for the listeners on building a community, right? So if I'm listening right now and I'm like, cool, I'm bought in a community, but sounds way easier said than done. And you've done it successfully and wildly successfully, I should add. What tips do you have for the listeners?
It's one by one, man. And interestingly enough, that's in our name, 1v1. And so it's one by one. It's not just an explosion. It's creating real, authentic, meaningful relationships with people, so that they're not like, the guys who come through our store, they're not buying from like, a no-face brand. They're sending us messages now. They're sending us messages, whereas in the beginning we were sending them messages, but they're sending us messages with the hope that like, we're going to respond. And not only do we respond, but you're responding with a voice memo, you're responding with a text message, and like, yo, so happy you're here. And again, like, it sounds a little bit acted out the way I just did it, but like, it's so authentic. I am so happy you're here. And you're hitting them with like just a FaceTime on Instagram because they message you and they're like, oh my God, this isn't just a company. There's people behind it. So it's one by one, and it's really being authentic in building that community and wanting to meet these people, learn about who they are and why you're going to be able to help them and how you could help them even more.
I think that's amazing, and I love that you said that, because it's what we call scaling the unscalable, right? It's mimicking the, we'll use hockey as an example, right? It's mimicking the throwing the puck over the glass, and the kid gets it. It's that feeling. So regardless of whether it's a professional athlete, a celebrity, or the drummer throws his drumstick into the crowd and the person catches it, it's that's a brand that I just spent money on, and they're actually responding to me. There's that subconscious that comes out, like it takes over inside you and triggers something. It's like, man, okay, I want to support these guys. And the truth is, the truth is, you could actually get away with making mistakes as a brand if you could figure that part out and treat your customers right. Yeah,
because you're a person, right? It's like every first time order, gets a thank you card and like what One Bone is all about. But on that card is their name, and everyone is personalized. And we get so many messages saying like, I can't believe you guys took the time to personalize the card that I got in my box from this new company that I don't even know. And our response to that is, we can't believe you took the time to come and purchase one of our shirts from a brand that, you know, is starting to become more and more known. But at the end of the day, there's still a hell of a lot of people out there that don't know about One Bone, that are just learning about us and taking the chance on us. And most times, you know, our return product rate is like insanely low. So most times these people are buying it, taking a chance, and usually changing their whole t-shirt game and just the way they feel and how they carry themselves. So it's super exciting. And to anybody out there, again, like you asked, like, do you need a mission? How does one build a community? Just start by being friends with people. And again, it's like, it's not like you go to a club and you're friends with everybody in the club. It's you go to the club and you went with a buddy of yours or a girl or a guy, whatever, and they're introducing you to that person that they met last week. And so it's one there, and then you connect, and then somebody sees them talking to you. And so again, it just like, it builds and it's exponential.
And I mean, I think getting the first sale is actually not as hard as getting to come back and buy more. So let's talk a little bit about how you guys at One Bone, what's the strategy in, you know, getting the first sale? Anyone could convince someone to buy once, right? I truly believe that if you push hard enough, I could convince anyone to buy something once. Getting them to come back, take away the product being actually good, because I think that's a given. It has to be a good product. But what's your strategy on getting people to keep coming back?
Well, I think, you know, the given that you're saying, I think that is the number one reason why people will come back. Like it is the given, and it's the automatic, and it's like the gimme answer, but it's true. Like if people tried on the shirt and the shirt sucked and it didn't fit, but they're trying it on, they're like, how did you figure out a custom made sizing for me? You know, so people are coming back because of the product. So that's number one. But above that, and I think it's something that, you know, is built over time, and we're really good at it. We're continuously perfecting it. We're always getting better. And the exciting part in being in a digital world is that, like, every single day you're growing and evolving and adapting and changing to the way things are in the world. So your email flows and your text, SMS flows. And now we've just launched an app, and like, these are all, you know, digital touch points that we try to make as personable as possible, so that like, it doesn't just feel like, you know, every kind of junk email you get or every kind of spam text that you get, it feels like it's from us, because it really is. When we're hitting the schedule or the send on the email, it's all of us at One Bone HQ, like, all right, you guys on board? Like, all right, let's hit it, you know, and we kind of celebrate each campaign, each flow, each time we're communicating with our brand following, like from a global perspective, as opposed to one by one. So I think just building out your digital platform and your back end is crucial in figuring out those little tricks and triggers to have people come back. And then the other thing for us that has been a huge home run is, you know, a clothing line will launch like a seasonal collection, you know, and they'll launch all their products at once, and people could go and they could shop through 40, 50 different products. Whereas for us, it's really niche and boutique, and, you know, really carefully curated to what we think our guys will like. And we're launching them sporadically throughout the year, as opposed to just one huge drop, you know? So we do drops roughly every 2 weeks of a new product. And then in between that product, the communication is content driven, you know, it's engaging. We just launched a One Bone, like the biggest playlist by One Bone. So another opportunity for people to know and feel and be a part of the brand without having to buy another t-shirt, you know? So it's all those little things that I think build into that sort of package that allow people to return. Our returning customer rate is I think quite high. To be honest, I don't really know what other people are dealing with out there. Not that we have our blinders on, but we really stay focused with what we're doing. Our returning customer rate is quite high, and our 30-day and 60-day returning customer rate is like growing exponentially. So like that's what really impresses us, like when people buy and then are shipping super quick and they get the product in 2 days, and then that was on a Monday, and then Thursday they're reordering 4 or 5 t-shirts, so it's all of it that builds that.
So those have been great lessons for entrepreneurs listening. Like the way you described, especially the last like 3 questions on the best tips if you want to grow a 7-figure e-commerce business. But we all know it's not as peachy all the time. Yeah. So what have been some of the biggest mistakes the brand has made so far that you think the listeners could learn from?
Some of the biggest mistakes, I mean, look, man, I think the number one that a scaling inventory-based business is managing that inventory accordingly. Now, we're really blessed in a sense that our product doesn't really die. If people are going to buy a black t-shirt 3 years ago, they're going to buy a black t-shirt in 3 years. And all the different colors and whatever we're offering, and we're going into pants and we're going into the fall. So, jackets and sweaters and stuff like that. So inventory management with the scale that we've been going at, it's tough to keep up, Fortunately, we've been scaling, like it's a good problem to have, right? Like it was flying off the shelves at the rate that we were scaling. So you plan 3 months ahead, you plan 6 months ahead. And then when things spike, it's like, well, okay, I guess that's a good problem to have. We need to go back to the drawing board for the next season. Other challenges that we have as a brand, I think, it's just coming together depending on who you're working with. If it's solo or if it's partners, those are different dynamics. And
so let's talk partners, because you're one of the co-founders and you have some amazingly smart and talented partners who are each good in their domain. Partnership is like marriage, right? So big time. And you're married to 3 other people in this business, right? You don't have one wife or one husband business. You have 3 other ones.
No, we're poly here.
Yeah. So I mean, what's the biggest contributor to making that work?
Flexibility. Also I'm a partner with 2 brothers and a father. So it's really family business dynamics.
Plus you. Family business plus me.
You. Yeah, exactly. So, I'm the long lost brother, let's say. But, I think the important thing is flexibility. It's admirable to see them working together as a family. I love my dad and I love my brother so much, but I personally would never be able to do it. They have their moments where it's brotherly and it's, father-son-esque. But at the end of the day, we have a great spectrum between our partnership. And what it is it's the reality on this side and it's the dreamers on this side. And we've got, Michael, who is like the ground, and then we've got Matt, who takes care of our production, who is like, new school ground. And then we've got Sam all the way over here. And these are the brothers and the father. Sam is the dreamer and I'm somewhere in the middle. I have the dreams, I have that creative mind, and I so get on board with the dreamer, but I also sort of see the reality. And I think that spectrum that we have between dream and reality and ground and the moon has just created this unbelievable balance between trying stuff, being very eccentric in the way we're doing things, yet remaining conservative from a number standpoint and from a profitability and productability standpoint, where, it's like, well, let's run, but the parachute is on, to make sure that we're not running away from it.
But you need that in a business, right? Because if you had three partners who are all visionaries, who are all dreamers,
Yeah.
and none of them rooted in the ground, you can't do that. I think when people look for partners, they look for the wrong thing, right? Every business needs a visionary person. They're not the integrator. They don't want to get bogged down with anything. They want to lead. They want to have the vision, and they want everyone on board to follow through. But you also need
Yeah.
that integrator person that goes in and could sit there and say, all right, does this map out? How do we map out to follow that vision? And I think too many times you
Yeah.
either get someone who wants to be a visionary person who's not, right? They're actually an integrator trying to take the visionary role and then hiring an integrator. So they're theoretically two integrators, or you have that visionary person who refuses to let go and understand their role and try to become an integrator and visionary person. And it's impossible to run a business like that.
Yeah. We, like you said, I mean, when you're looking for a relationship, the first instinct, whether it be marriage or a partnership or a best buddy or whatever, the instinct is not to find somebody that is not like you. The instinct is to find somebody that's exactly like you, because they're going to know and understand how you feel and the way you want things and your mind and your creativity and where you're going to go. And but realistically speaking, I mean, being in so far a successful marriage, personally, my wife is the most opposite to me, and we have our common ground, but it's that makes the partnership work in the home. And similarly for our brand, we're very fortunate that like the worlds came together, that we have these opposites, all in the same room. Because if we were all, like you said, if we were all dreamers, or if we were all just super grounded and it's reality or nothing, then we wouldn't be doing what we're doing right now.
And you said you managed to be conservative and be a dreamer at the same time. I think you've managed to scale the brand without growing broke. And I think many scale and lose money or grow inwards rather than outwards, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And you've managed to incrementally, I guess, scale each core area of the business, which is quite hard and really rare for a business to do. Like they usually go all in on one area and can't increase the other major levers of growing a business. How have you been able to do that? And I guess what's your approach to looking at growth that maybe some of the entrepreneurs here could learn from?
Being man, first of all, I'll take this opportunity to say I'm so happy to be on this podcast. You and I go back a little bit, and even before we like rekindled our relationship, I was learning so much from the Perfectly Mentored podcast. And I was really taking everything that everyone was saying on this show to heart, because I'm a first, I've had little bouts of entrepreneurship in the past, but in terms of truly building a brand and a business, I'm a rookie. So all of my learning and all of my education comes through podcast consumption, and yours has been pinnacle, comes through YouTube, comes through Googling shit, so I think the way you do that is you have to be creative and you have to dream, but you also have to know and understand that if you don't have that parachute attached to your back while you're running, then you're going to take off, float off into the abyss, and you won't hit the moon the way you're trying to get to it. And it's a hard concept to zero in on, especially when you're starting out, especially when you're starting a business. Like my brother, for example, also entrepreneur, a COVID baby project with like smoked salmon. I will give him a plug here because it's the best smoked salmon in Montreal, and it's called Zadie's. And he started on his own, and he's still on his own. And to be honest, like he's trying to figure out how to find that perfect partner, or that perfect sort of sidekick to make sure that he is grounded and he is building a business, but it's profitable and sustainable. Because then you're just going to have an idea. You're not going to have a business. You're going to have a product that is maybe good. You're going to invest in probably a lot of inventory. And then you're going to realize, okay, now I have no more money. it's pretty hard to keep the business going when you have no money. So the number one balancing act is, growing the brand, building a business, and remaining profitable. It's not an easy task, but once you figure out that formula, it becomes a series of like tweaking the knobs, as opposed to, changing the tires all the time and changing the engine inside the car. It's more so, adding tints to the windows or something. It's lighter work. It's optimizing. And you've mentioned it. It's incremental changes. It's not focusing on, how do we go from having 10,000 people in our store on a daily basis to 1 million people? No, it's about, okay, you have those 10,000 people coming into your store. How can you make them want a little more? Or how can you make a few of those 10,000 want something more than they did the day before, So it's all those little changes that make it really work in terms of the formula.
I love that you said that, because I do think revenue is a vanity metric. And I think people get too caught up with, and as I was saying, you're a 7-figure brand. I sometimes trip over that too, because I sit there and say, that's admirable, but what if you spent 8 figures to become a 7-figure brand? It really doesn't.
Yeah.
Right. Profit, money in your bank account matters way more than the revenue coming in. I think sometimes what businesses need to look at is, like you said, you don't need to necessarily go from 300,000 to 1 million this month. But what if you can make that 300,000 and add another 20% profit margin to it and become more profitable on the 300,000 without, because to go from 300,000 to 1 million, you're incurring more costs, right? The more you scale, the more costs you incur. But what if you could,
and that's what we're learning.
But what if you could stay where you're at, right? And just become more profitable, which I think is an underrated, or I guess underappreciated part of business that people don't really look at when they're starting off. Everyone just wants more money, more money, more money, more money. And I get it. If you have lifetime value and you're able to acquire more customers and grow.
Yeah.
But I think people really need to sit there and say, okay, well, I'm here. I've managed to scale. How do I make this profitable so that I don't break the entire system? Like you said, I don't switch out the car and switch out all the pieces, but rather I just turn the dials.
I mean, that's the name of the game, right? And I think, you've mentioned this before, that revenue is a vanity metric. I think it is, unless you have that formula built out really properly. If you have your formula built out really properly and you're balancing your operations and your marketing and your cost of goods, and like everything is built out, you can't say clad tight in business, because it's never really clad tight. It's so vulnerable. It's very touch and go. But if it is built out, then the revenue doesn't become a vanity metric, because your profit is built in, and those little tweaks that we were talking about, that's going to help increase the profit and ultimately obviously increase the revenue. So like once it's all built out, the vanity is out of the window, because it becomes real. It doesn't become, if you're talking about vanity, it doesn't become a blue check mark next to your name that really doesn't mean anything. That blue check mark actually has value with that vanity number, because it's built out properly.
Agreed. I want to wrap up with something different. I want to change directions for a second here. I think every entrepreneur, every business's job, to an extent, is to entertain. I think that's how you build a following. That's how you get loyal customers. Value and entertainment, right? So it's value and entertainment. Those are the two things that people come back over and over for. And if they're coming back, you have a chance to sell to them. If they never come back, you don't. So what advice? Because I mean, you're on the radio, you've emceed, like you're an entertainer, which comes easy for you. So I want you to try to take off that hat and put on something else. What advice do you have for the people listening who sit there and say, my life is boring, or, I'm just not that entertaining, or no one wants to see this or hear this. But they know they need to be posting. They know they need to be, they need to add that value. What advice do you have for those people? Because I think you're a perfect person to deliver that.
I think number one, you don't want to fake anything. I think that authenticity is what shines through, whether you're a brand or a personal brand, or you want to expose your family, or teach people how you're feeding your child, whatever you're looking to expose out there. I think also we consume very boring stuff. TikTok is hilarious, and there's so many people like creating amazing stuff, but you'll find yourself getting stuck on like, a new trend right now. And I might be dating the podcast when people are listening to it in a year or so, but like people are literally just eating soup and saying, I like soup, like it's just that simple. So we're consuming so much content on a daily basis that like people have almost given up on the quality. And it's not to say sacrifice the quality, but it's to know and understand that your starting point doesn't have to be, being a radio host on Virgin Radio in Montreal. Your starting point could literally just be you sitting at your desk and saying, I drank more water than I thought I was going to today, and I feel great. And it sounds really mundane, and it's like, well, okay, who cares? But somebody might care, and it's a world of influencers, and it's a world of, like you said, vanity metrics, and having 1 million followers is better than having 1 follower. But guess what? If you have 1 follower and you talk about the fact that you drank more water today, or you talk about how you just found the most perfect fitting t-shirt at onebone.com.
I'll let you plug soon. You don't have to throw it in. No, I'm going to give you your plug. Don't worry.
I'm bringing all the shameless plugs.
I got it.
Because I know when you're chopping this up for your little content for socials, that's going to be in there, but
my man paid attention.
Yeah. But when people are looking at that, it doesn't matter if you have 1 million or if you have 1, because that one person saw me talking about that t-shirt or just drinking water, a very mundane thing. And they were like, you know what? I should drink a little more water today. So again, it's something so basic, so not thought of, that influenced somebody. And ultimately, if you're doing something that you love, whether it's the fact that you're a lawyer, or you're a real estate agent, or you're selling smoked salmon or t-shirts, or making a podcast, somebody out there is interested in what you're doing. So it's very grandiose to think about, how am I going to curate a playlist for a group of people, or how am I going to keep people's attention for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour in a podcast. Subtract it all, go back to the basics. It's just 1 by 1. And that's how the community is built. That's how you start to engage in people. And I think as a radio host, a very valuable tip that I was given, and that's, sort of what has become my bread and butter, not just in radio, but in my everyday life, is I am like a purebred entertainer, and I've literally been doing it since I was tap dancing for my grandparents when I was like 3 years old, but the concept is just 1 by 1. Don't make it bigger than it is. And again, the tip that I was given is, you're not entertaining, you're engaging, and you're interacting with people. And if you could engage and interact with people by just hearing your voice, whether it be on a podcast or on the radio, or people are watching this on YouTube, you're engaging with the viewer or the listener, and they're engaging with you in turn. So break it down to a conversation, break it down to a thought that you had, and then that, again, makes it less grandiose than it may have seemed before. And just start somewhere. if you want to build a community, or if you want to build a brand, or you want to try and build your personal brand and stand out a little more as a a wood carver, or whatever you want to do, you just start somewhere, and it is hard and scary, and it doesn't come natural to people, but eventually you get better at it.
My man, really appreciate you doing this. And I also have to say thank you for the kind words about the podcast. And I appreciate the role it's played in your business growth. And I appreciate even more you coming on and repaying that to the listeners who are listening. And hopefully they come on the show in a couple of years, talking about what they've learned and how they built their business. So thank you so much for A, those kind words, and B, implementing it and becoming a mentor yourself to a lot of the other people, which I truly believe in, is giving back and teaching the people the way up. So thank you for doing that. And for the listeners, and thank you for coming on here and delivering tons of fire this episode. Like, let's not take that out of the equation. Let's not forget about that. But for the listeners who want to learn more and they want to, here's where you get the plug, right? I know you're throwing it in little clips there, right? I'm making my editor's job pretty hard right now, but for the
know you're not using this for your little social media reels and stuff. You know what I mean?
You're giving my editors a lot of work here. We're just gonna have to throw your plugs into every single one of the things. But for the listeners who want to learn more, and either get in touch with you or learn more about OneBone, how can they reach
out? Very simple. I mean, if you want to try that perfect fitting t-shirt, and again, it's not just for the big man. It's really, we're made for everybody. So whether you're a medium to an 8XL, go check out onebone.com. On social media, easiest place to send us a message if you're looking for sizing info or whatever, at OneBone Brand on Instagram, and it's at OneBone Brand on all social media. And for me personally, best way to get in touch with me is at Adam Greenberg 1 on Instagram, and DMs. Like I said, I was a DM warrior when we started out OneBone and still am that way. And if anybody is still listening, use the code Perfectly Mentored on onebone.com for 15% off your first order.
Amazing. We'll put that in the show notes. Adam, thank you so much, my man. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want, check out our most recent video over here. And this one is the one YouTube thinks you'll like. But if you really enjoyed watching, please do me a favor, like and subscribe over here. Thank you so much.